New York, 1953. A man falls to his death from the 11th floor of a hotel. Texas, 1954. A man wearing no shirt, covered in scratches and blood, scrambles out of the bushes. No recollection of where he was or what he'd done. The body of a 3-year-old girl nearby. Mind control, LSD, Charles Manson, the Unabomber, Artichokes, the CIA, financial records, drugging someone who's unwilling. What do these all have in common? They're all terrible things to bring up on a first date. And also, the topic of today's video. I'm King Trout, and you're watching That Time That Thing Happened. Today's thing? What makes you, you? Is it your thoughts, your memories, your actions, your free will, how you choose to interact with the world? Maybe. What if someone could take all of that away from you and replace it with whatever they wanted? That was the goal of the CIA's Project MK-Ultra. Project MK-Ultra got its start as Project Bluebird, a CIA operation where they were looking into special interrogation techniques that they used on captured prisoners overseas. In this case, special means using drugs and torture. Deputy Director of the CIA at the time, Alan Dulles, was unhappy with Project Bluebird. Not because of the torture or the drug use on unwilling participants. No, that was his favorite part. He was unhappy because it wasn't collecting enough scientific data. Dulles wanted to expand the project and make it more scientific. He knew just the man for the job. He called up one of his old work colleagues from the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, chemical weapons expert. The two had worked together on chemical weapons testing during World War II. So in 1951, the expansion happened, and Gottlieb was put in charge. Bluebird was renamed Project Artichoke. Okay. Both men believed there was a way to control and manipulate the human mind, and Gottlieb was going to find it. He experimented with THC, cocaine, heroin, mescaline, insert hacky joke about my college days here. And then he tried LSD, and he loved it. Then he started using it in his experiments. A lot. From 1951 to 1953, Gottlieb continued these experiments of drugging and torturing prisoners. He wasn't getting the truth serum that he was looking for, though. People just kept making shit up. It's almost as if, pumping someone full of a mind-altering substance and then beating the shit out of them. They're just going to tell you whatever, because they don't want that to happen anymore. It's crazy. I would have never figured that out. One of the subjects of these tests spoke confidently and at length about their child. A child who didn't exist. They made them up. Another confessed to robbing a store, even though they had legally purchased the items they'd obtained from the store. And a third spoke at length about how he intended to murder his stepfather, a man who'd been dead for a year at this point in time. None of them had any recollection when it was all over. So, in their search for a truth serum, the CIA had created essentially the worst truth serum ever. It's a truth serum that makes you lie and make it up, and then not remember any of it. After 2 years of experimentation searching for a method by which to extract the truth from people, all Gottlieb had discovered was a method by which to implant false narratives into people that they believed for the time being and then forgot when everything was said and done. What the hell was he going to do with that? Wait a minute, did that last guy say he was going to kill somebody? Inspiration struck. New idea! Instead of trying to get the truth out of people, Gottlieb was going to try and put lies into people. And good news for Gottlieb. Right around the same time he discovered he wasn't going to find his truth serum and came up with this new idea, his old buddy Alan Dulles had become director of the CIA. Free access to the checkbook, baby. He approached Dulles and told him he needed more freedom and more expensive tests. And he was sick of doing these tests on filthy Europeans. He wanted to come home and perform them on filthy Americans. Dulles approved. And so in 1953, Project MK-Ultra was born. Its goal? Replace the thoughts and actions of an individual with those desired by the CIA.
Oh, hey, what's up? I'm in the middle of editing the video that you're currently watching, and I realized I completely forgot to mention the fact that the whole point was to train assassins. They were trying to make Manchurian candidates, the ideal murderer, someone who you could just get to do whatever you want, and then they would forget about it when they were done. So, yeah, I mean, the whole point was to create assassins. But back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Experiments were conducted at 149 locations across the US and Canada, on some willing and some unwilling participants. What were these experiments? Well, they varied in scope and scale, and the details are a bit foggy. We'll get to why in just a moment, but nearly all involved drugging participants, whether witting or unwitting, and nearly all were drugged with LSD. You have to remember, LSD was only 10 years old at this time. Most people didn't even know it existed. Some would just be observed to see how they reacted. Some would be interrogated to see how they reacted to questioning. Some would receive electroconvulsive therapy, because fuck it, let's play with electricity, see what happens. Some would receive psychological torture. Some of these experiments would be over the course of a day, some over the course of a week, some over the course of months, and some over the course of years. In November of 1953, the men at the helm of Project MKUltra went on a weekend retreat to Dry Creek Lake. Because, man, all that illegal experimentation on the people you're supposed to be protecting really takes a toll on you. Gotta go on vacation every once in a while. Cut loose. All those in attendance were poured a drink of Cointreau. Gottlieb said a toast and then down the hatch. A few minutes later, Gottlieb started asking anyone if they were feeling funny. What they didn't know was that Gottlieb's deputy, Robert Lashbrook, had dosed the Cointreau with LSD. Party time! One of the men who was dosed, Frank Olson, was a biological weapons expert, and no stranger to unethical experimentation on an unwitting populace. One of the experiments that he performed before he joined Project MKUltra was dusting the entire city of San Diego with a biological weapon, just to see what would happen. But he got dosed with LSD, and he was pissed about that. A few days later, Olson had decided he would resign from the CIA. He attempted to tender his resignation, and all his CIA buddies were like, "No, dude, you're just bummed out. You're stressed. We get it. You need some psychiatric care. Little you time. You know, go see this psychiatrist we have. He's in upstate New York. Have Robert Lashbrook take you there. It'll be fine." Olson agreed. He and Lashbrook flew to New York City, where they shared a hotel room on the 11th floor of the Pennsylvania Hotel. At around 2 a.m. the next morning, Olson came crashing to the ground. The night manager of the hotel ran out and found Olson still alive. He was attempting to say something, but was drowning in his own blood. It was unintelligible. The police arrived at the scene and found Lashbrook sitting on the toilet of the hotel room the two had shared. He said Olson had gone crazy and jumped out the window. Olson's official cause of death? Suicide. Until 22 years later, 1975, the New York Times released an article claiming that the CIA had been performing experiments on the American populace without their knowledge. That is a bold claim. Due to public outcry, President Gerald Ford created the Rockefeller Commission to investigate, see if the CIA had been performing any illegal experiments on the American populace without their knowledge. What would they find? Actually, not much, as it turns out. 2 years prior, in 1973, the director of the CIA at the time had ordered that all documentation related to Project MKUltra be destroyed. Coincidentally, this happened immediately after Sidney Gottlieb retired from the CIA. And to summarize hours of questioning by Congress to the, at that time now former director of the CIA in regards to why he would order the destruction of these documents, his answer was a resounding, But they did find evidence that Olson had been drugged unwittingly. The theory at the time was that the LSD had caused a nervous breakdown, which resulted in him jumping out the window. President Gerald Ford invited Olson's family to the White House to apologize, and to settle out of court. CIA employees who were questioned at the 1975 hearings testified that it was just a tiny little project, they didn't find anything, and it ended in 1964. Nothing to worry about. Bet you won't be surprised to hear that that was all horseshit. 2 years later, in 1977, a CIA whistleblower found documents they hadn't destroyed. Financial records. These financial records by no means tell the full story of Project MKUltra. They aren't status reports or progress updates, just a list of things the project was spending money on, and when they were spending the money. Those who read the financial records immediately recognized two things. One, Project MKUltra certainly did not stop in 1964. The financial records ran all the way until 1973, when the other records were coincidentally destroyed. And two, if Project MKUltra was the small-scale operation that didn't have any findings the CIA had claimed it was 2 years prior, why were they spending so much fucking money on it? Thanks to these financial records handed over by the CIA whistleblower in 1977, this second congressional investigation of the CIA's Project MKUltra was much more revealing. Through these records, the massive scale of the project, as well as the intended purpose of wiping human memories and implanting new memories, was revealed. But again, the little details, the project notes, how many people they experimented on, what experiments they performed specifically, all that's gone, coincidentally destroyed when Gottlieb retired. Everyone from the CIA who testified this second time claimed that, yeah, they were trying to wipe human memories and implant new ones, but it was a total failure. They never succeeded, okay? They could never make that happen. For real. I will now read an excerpt of a letter written to Gottlieb by psychiatrist Louis J. West. The wiping has been a success. Louis J. West was one of the big-time boys on the project. He was very big into experimenting, and he led a lot of the experiments in MK Ultra. Since the detailed records of these experiments were coincidentally destroyed, allegedly, in 1973, the specifics of what they found and who was affected will probably never be known to the public. Two alleged victims of Project MK Ultra, as I mentioned at the beginning, were Charles Manson and Ted Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber. Neither of these can be confirmed. And since members of the CIA testified before Congress in 1977, stating that Project MK Ultra had made no headway and they didn't learn anything, we know that to be the truth. Because perjury is a crime, and they wouldn't commit a crime. Oh wait, this whole thing's about how they committed a crime. Maybe they lied. And on that note, let me tell you a completely unrelated story that has nothing in common with Project MK Ultra at all, except for the common denominator of Dr. Louis J. West. July 4th, 1954, San Antonio, Texas. The city's going through a heat wave, and a young couple with no air conditioning drives to a local bar. About midnight, they're going to go inside for a drink, and they tell their two children to wait outside in the parking lot. And I would say that that's terrible parenting, but it was in 1954, so that's probably like mid-tier parenting, to be honest. If the kids were actively drinking lead-based paint, it probably would have also been fine with the parents. It was a different time.
Smart woman. She's putting a new floor down by herself. Wise woman. She's using Kentile vinyl asbestos tile.
When the couple went to leave, their 3-year-old daughter was nowhere to be found. The police investigated, and not too long after and not too far away, they heard a rustling in some bushes. A young man, wearing no shirt, covered in scratches and blood, crawled out. He didn't know where he was, or how he got there, or whose blood he was covered in. But a short distance away, they found the girl's body. The man was arrested and charged with murder. His name was Jimmy Shaver. He was an airman from the nearby Lackland Air Force Base. At the time of his arrest, officers stated that he was acting strange, as if he was in a trance. Up till now, Shaver had no criminal history or record of violence. He had just recently gotten married and had 2 children of his own. Shortly after his arrest by the police department, the military police arrived and took custody of him. Months later, Shaver's memories of the event still hadn't returned. The judge ordered that he be taken into the care of Lackland Air Force Base's psychiatrist, Louis J. West. West determined that Shaver was sane enough to stand trial. Then he interviewed him on the crime. The interview was split into 3 parts. In the first portion of the interview, Shaver asserts that he has no recollection of the events of that night and maintains his innocence. The second portion of the interview was not recorded. In the third portion of the interview, you can hear Shaver crying. And then he states that he can remember it all now. Having been given an injection of sodium pentothal by West, Shaver confessed to the crime. He stated that he had hallucinated the young girl to be a cousin who had assaulted him as a child, and God had told him to kill her. Having now been determined sane and confessing to the crime, Shaver stood trial for the murder. He was mostly silent during the trial. Those who observed him stated he wasn't quite like himself, almost as if he was in a trance. A known chain smoker, he didn't smoke a single cigarette during the entire trial. Since he was in such a bizarrely silent and accepting state in spite of the situation he found himself in, most of his defense was provided by his wife and mother. One of the arguments in his defense was made by his mother, who stated that one of the factors at play might have been the experimental treatments he was receiving for his migraines. Experimental treatments he had been receiving on the base. Lackland Air Force Base looked into it and said they had no record of Jimmy Shaver having been a patient of the base's psychiatrist, Louis J. West. And now, they might not have had any record of him because, coincidentally, the file for patients in 1954 with last names beginning between the letters S.A. and S.T. was missing. Interesting coincidence. Jimmy Shaver was found guilty and sentenced to death via electric chair. Now, again, this story completely unrelated to MK Ultra in every way, shape, or form. Just wanted to tell it because it also involved that guy, Louis J. West. Other than that, no common theme between that story and this story. Just completely separate items. Will the true scope and details of who was affected by Project MK Ultra and the CIA's findings ever be revealed to the public? I doubt it, but all I know is I can sleep comfortably at night knowing that this project has ended and there is no reason for us to be concerned, and you should trust the government, especially the CIA. I am King Trout. That was that time that thing happened.
As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hit that
Sorry about that. Thanks for watching. Thank you to all of my wonderful patrons on Patreon. You can become one too. Patreon.com/king_trout. Follow me on Instagram, king_trout, TikTok, king_trout. I'm on everything. I got merch. I got a link tree, linktree.com/king_trout. You get the picture. Shouts out to you, you beautiful people. Keep it up. I love you. Bye.